Jerusalem, Thursday night, April 6, 33 AD, 1137. The Roman soldier's name wasn't Gaius or Marcus or any of the names history usually assigns to nameless men. His name was lost to time, because what mattered wasn't who he was before that night. What mattered was who he became after. He was 24 years old, 4 years in the Roman army, stationed in Jerusalem for 18 months. He had learned to speak some Aramaic, enough to understand the locals, enough to insult them effectively when needed. And on that Thursday night, when they brought a bleeding, beaten prisoner into the praetorium, the soldier decided insults were exactly what the situation required. The prisoner was Jesus of Nazareth. The soldier had heard the name. Everyone in Jerusalem had heard it by then. The miracle worker, the teacher who gathered crowds, the one the Pharisees hated and the common people loved. But looking at him that night, the soldier saw none of that power, saw only a man who had been awake all night, who had been beaten by the temple guards, who had a swollen face and blood crusted in his beard, who looked exhausted and defeated. The soldier and his unit had been called in to assist with the interrogation. Pontius Pilate was questioning the prisoner. The charges were vague. Something about claiming to be a king, something about threatening the temple, something about blasphemy. The soldier didn't care about the details. He just knew this was going to be a long night and he was bored. So when Jesus was led past him, stumbling slightly from exhaustion, the soldier stuck out his foot. Jesus tripped, fell hard on the stone floor. His hands were bound so he couldn't catch himself. His face hit the ground with a sickening crack. The other soldiers laughed. The soldier who had tripped him laughed loudest. "That's how you walk, King?" he called out in Aramaic. "Crawling on your face like a worm." Jesus slowly pushed himself up. Blood dripped from a new cut on his cheek. But he didn't respond. Didn't even look at the soldier. Just got to his feet and continued walking. That silence irritated the soldier. He wanted a reaction, wanted anger or fear or something. But Jesus gave him nothing. The interrogation continued. Pilate questioned Jesus about being a king. Jesus answered calmly, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest." The soldier snorted. Convenient excuse. "Your kingdom isn't of this world because you don't have a kingdom. You're just a failed rabbi with delusions of grandeur." Still, Jesus didn't respond to him. Kept his attention on Pilate. Answered the governor's questions with quiet dignity. That dignity infuriated the soldier. How could a bound prisoner, a man facing execution, maintain that kind of composure? It didn't make sense, so the soldier decided to break it. When Pilate momentarily left the hall to confer with advisors, the soldiers were left guarding Jesus. The soldier approached him, got right in his face. "So you're a king," he said mockingly. "Where's your crown, your majesty? Where's your throne? Where's your army?" Jesus looked at him calmly. The soldier expected anger, expected the man to flinch or cower, but Jesus just looked at him with eyes that seemed to see right through him. And that look, that calm, penetrating gaze, made the soldier even angrier. "You think you're special," the soldier continued. "You think you're chosen by God. But look at you, beaten, bound, about to die. Where's your God now? If he loved you, if you were really his son like they say you claim, wouldn't he save you?" Still Jesus said nothing, but something in his eyes changed. Not fear, not anger. Something the soldier couldn't identify. Something that made him deeply uncomfortable. The other soldiers joined in. One of them grabbed a purple robe, the kind officers wore, and threw it over Jesus' shoulders. "Look, he's dressed like royalty now." Another soldier found some thorny branches used for kindling, twisted them into a crude circle, shoved it down onto Jesus' head. "There's your crown, King." The thorns cut deep. Blood immediately started running down Jesus' face. Still, he didn't cry out, didn't curse them, didn't even flinch. The soldier who had started all this grabbed a reed, a thin wooden staff, and placed it in Jesus' bound hands. "Here's your scepter, your majesty. Now you look the part." Then they began to kneel in front of him, mock bowing. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said, laughing. Then they'd spit on him, hit him across the face, grab the reed from his hands and strike him on the head with it, driving the thorns deeper. The soldier participated in all of it. He was the ringleader, the one coming up with new humiliations, and the whole time, he kept expecting Jesus to break, to start begging for mercy, to start cursing them, to do something human. But Jesus endured it all in silence. His eyes never filled with hatred, never showed the rage the soldier knew he himself would feel in that situation. And that unbreakable dignity, that refusal to be reduced to what they were doing to him, scared the soldier. Scared him because it suggested strength he couldn't understand. Scared him because it made him feel small. So he hit harder, mocked louder, tried desperately to provoke a reaction that would prove Jesus was just a man like any other. Nothing worked. When Pilate returned, he looked at Jesus, saw the blood, saw the purple robe and crown of thorns, saw what the soldiers had done. His expression was unreadable. He had Jesus brought out to the crowd that had gathered outside. The Jewish leaders were demanding crucifixion. Pilate clearly didn't want to execute Jesus. The soldier could see it. The governor kept trying to find ways out, tried to release Jesus as the customary Passover pardon. But the crowd chose Barabbas, the murderer, instead. Pilate declared Jesus innocent. The crowd demanded crucifixion anyway. Finally, Pilate gave in. He washed his hands publicly, declared himself innocent of Jesus' blood, handed him over for crucifixion. The soldier and his unit were assigned to the execution detail. 4 soldiers to crucify 3 men, Jesus and 2 criminals. They stripped off the purple robe, put Jesus' own clothes back on, made him carry the crossbeam through the streets of Jerusalem to Golgotha. The soldier walked alongside, watched Jesus struggle under the weight. The man had been awake all night, beaten repeatedly. He could barely stand, let alone carry heavy wood. Jesus fell. Once, twice, 3 times. Each time the soldiers forced him up, struck him, shouted at him to keep moving. The soldier participated. But something had shifted. The mocking felt hollow now. The cruelty felt forced. Because Jesus never responded with hatred, never cursed them, never even looked at them with anger, just kept trying to get up, kept trying to move forward, kept enduring. Halfway to Golgotha, Jesus collapsed completely, couldn't get up. The soldier realized the man physically couldn't carry the cross any further. So they grabbed someone from the crowd, a man from Cyrene named Simon, forced him to carry the crossbeam the rest of the way. The soldier saw relief flash across Jesus' face, not for himself, but for Simon, as if Jesus was grateful that this stranger wouldn't have to watch him struggle anymore. What kind of man, facing crucifixion, thought about others? When they reached Golgotha, the real work began. The soldier had done this before, knew the procedure. Lay the condemned on the crossbeam, drive spikes through the wrists, lift the beam and attach it to the vertical post already planted in the ground. Drive spikes through the feet. It was brutal work. The condemned always screamed, always begged, always cursed. The soldier prepared himself for that. But when they laid Jesus down and drove the first spike through his wrist, Jesus didn't scream. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, but didn't scream. The second spike went through. Same response. Closed eyes, deep breath, no scream. They lifted the cross. The weight of Jesus' body pulling on the spikes in his wrists must have been agony beyond description. Still, no scream. They drove the spike through his feet. The soldier was the one who did it, held the spike, swung the hammer, felt the resistance of bone, felt the spike go through, felt it sink into the wood, and he looked at Jesus' face, saw pain there, saw tears streaming down his cheeks, but saw no hatred, no rage, just pain and something else, something that looked almost like sadness for the soldier, for what the soldier was doing to himself by doing this to Jesus. The 2 criminals were crucified on either side. They screamed, they cursed, they spat. They did everything Jesus didn't do. By 9:30 in the morning, all 3 were hanging. The long wait for death began. The soldier and his unit sat down. They divided the clothes of the condemned among themselves, as was their right. Jesus' tunic was seamless, good quality. They decided to cast lots for it rather than tear it. The soldier won. He folded it carefully and set it aside. Then the mocking began again. It always did. Boredom led to cruelty. The soldier called up to Jesus. "If you're the king of the Jews, save yourself. Come down from there." Others in the crowd joined in, the religious leaders especially. "He saved others," they shouted. "He can't save himself. Let him come down from the cross now and we'll believe in him." One of the criminals joined in. "Aren't you the Christ?" he sneered. "Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God, since you're under the same sentence? We're punished justly, getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he turned his head toward Jesus. "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus looked at him, spoke clearly despite the pain. "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." The soldier stopped mocking. That exchange did something to him. Here were 3 men dying, all in the same agony. One criminal cursed, one found hope, and Jesus, the man they had beaten and mocked and crucified, was offering paradise, was maintaining the same dignity, the same strange authority, even here, even now. The soldier looked at the crowd, saw women weeping at the foot of the cross, recognized Jesus' mother among them, saw John, one of the disciples who hadn't run away. Jesus saw them too. Despite his own pain, despite the difficulty of breathing, despite everything, Jesus spoke. "Woman," he said to his mother, "here is your son." Then to John, "Here is your mother." He was making sure his mother would be cared for, even while dying in agony. Even after being abandoned by most of his followers, he was still thinking about others. The soldier felt something crack inside him. This wasn't how condemned criminals acted. This wasn't natural, this wasn't normal. Something was wrong. Or something was right in a way that exposed how wrong everything else was. Then at noon, darkness fell. Not gradual darkness like sunset. Sudden darkness like a curtain dropping. One moment there was bright midday sun. The next moment, darkness. Complete darkness. The soldier jumped to his feet, hand instinctively going to his sword. But how do you fight darkness? How do you combat what you can't see or understand? The crowd panicked. People screamed, ran, fell to their knees. The other soldiers stood too. All of them scared. All of them confused. "This isn't natural," one of them said. "What's happening?" another asked. The soldier didn't answer. Didn't know how to answer. Because this was beyond his experience. Beyond his understanding. This was supernatural. And if it was supernatural, then maybe the man hanging on the center cross really was who he claimed to be. The darkness continued, minute after minute. The soldier couldn't see Jesus clearly anymore, could only hear his labored breathing, could hear the 2 criminals gasping, could hear the remaining crowd murmuring in fear. 3 hours. The darkness lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of terror. 3 hours of the soldier standing there thinking about what he had done. About tripping Jesus, about mocking him, about driving the spike through his feet, about participating in the torture and humiliation of a man who had done nothing to deserve it, a man who even now, even suffering, maintained dignity and compassion. At 3 p.m, Jesus cried out, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," my God, why have you forsaken me?" The anguish in that cry cut through the soldier. This was different from the physical pain. This was abandonment, separation, a kind of suffering the soldier couldn't comprehend. Some people in the crowd misunderstood, thought Jesus was calling for Elijah. One of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a staff and offered it to Jesus. The soldier watched, remembered offering the mocked drink earlier. How different this offer was. Then Jesus said something else. "I thirst." Simple words, human words, showing that despite everything supernatural happening, Jesus was still experiencing very human suffering. He drank from the sponge. A little, not much. Then he spoke again, louder this time, with strength that shouldn't have been possible. "It is finished. And finally, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And he died. In that exact moment, several things happened at once. The darkness lifted, sunlight returned, and the earth shook. Not a small tremor, a violent earthquake. The ground bucked beneath the soldier's feet. He fell. Rocks literally split apart. The sound was deafening. The soldier looked up at the cross, at Jesus hanging there, dead, and knew with absolute certainty that he had just participated in the murder of someone he should never have touched, someone innocent, someone special, someone divine. The centurion, the soldier's commanding officer, stood staring at Jesus's body. His face was pale. His hands shook. He had overseen hundreds of executions, maybe thousands, but never anything like this. He spoke, and his voice carried despite the chaos. Surely this man was the Son of God. The soldier heard, and knew it was true. Everything that had happened. The dignity Jesus maintained. The forgiveness he offered the criminal. The care he showed for his mother. The way he had endured torture without hatred. The darkness. The earthquake. All of it pointed to the same impossible conclusion. They had killed God's Son. The weight of that realization crushed the soldier. He had mocked God, had beaten God, had driven nails through God's feet, had laughed while God suffered. The magnitude of what he had done was unbearable. He fell to his knees, not because of the earthquake, because of guilt. The other soldiers were recovering, had to finish their work. The two criminals were still alive, still suffering. Standard procedure was to break their legs. Without the ability to push up to breathe, they would die quickly. The soldiers broke the legs of both criminals. Sounds of bones snapping, final screams. Then silence as they suffocated. But when they came to Jesus, they saw he was already dead. To make certain, one of them took a spear and pierced Jesus' side. Blood and water flowed out. Proof of death. The soldier watched all this from his knees. Couldn't move. Couldn't process. Couldn't do anything except kneel there under the weight of what he had done. Eventually, people came to take the bodies down. Joseph of Arimathea, a member of the Sanhedrin who had secretly followed Jesus, had gotten permission from Pilate to bury him. With Nicodemus's help, they took Jesus' body, wrapped it in linen with spices according to Jewish burial customs, laid it in a new tomb in a nearby garden, rolled a stone across the entrance. The soldier watched them work, wanted to help, wanted to do something. But what could he do? What help could he offer now? Too late. Far too late. When the burial was complete, when everyone had left, the soldier finally stood. His legs were shaky. His whole body trembled. He walked slowly back to the barracks. The other soldiers tried to talk to him, tried to process what had happened, but he couldn't speak, couldn't engage, could only think about Jesus' eyes, about the way Jesus had looked at him. Not with hatred, with something else, something that looked like pity. Not pity for Jesus' own suffering, pity for what the soldier was doing to himself by doing this to Jesus. That night the soldier didn't sleep, just sat on his bunk, staring at the wall. The tunic he had won, Jesus' tunic, was folded beside him. He picked it up, held it. Good craftsmanship, seamless weave. The tunic of a skilled worker, a man who took pride in his labor. Not just a wandering preacher, a real person with a real life, a person the soldier had helped kill. Saturday passed in a blur. The soldier went through the motions, completed his duties mechanically. But his mind was elsewhere, replaying every moment from Thursday night to Friday afternoon, every insult, every blow, every mocking word, every cruel laugh. And through it all, Jesus' response, or lack of response, the refusal to hate, the maintenance of dignity, the offering of forgiveness, the care for others even while suffering. What kind of man did that? What kind of God did that? Sunday morning came. The soldier was off duty. He couldn't stay in the barracks anymore, couldn't be around the other soldiers who were already joking again. already moving on, already treating Friday as just another execution. He left, walked the streets of Jerusalem aimlessly, and found himself, without consciously planning it, near the garden where Jesus had been buried. He approached carefully, didn't know why he was there, didn't know what he expected to find. As he got closer, he heard voices, women's voices, excited, talking rapidly. He moved closer, saw several women near the tomb. The stone had been rolled away. The tomb was open. One of the women was Mary Magdalene. He recognized her from Friday. She had been at the cross. She saw him, recognized his uniform. Her eyes widened with fear and something else. Anger, maybe. Accusation. The soldier raised his hands, showed he was unarmed. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said. His voice came out rough, broken. "I just needed to see, to know." Mary studied him. Then something in her expression softened. "He's not here," she said. "Who?" the soldier asked, though he knew. "Jesus. He's not in the tomb. We came to anoint his body, but it's gone." The soldier's heart raced. Someone stole it. The authorities said disciples would try. Mary shook her head. Her face was radiant now. Not stolen. Risen. There were angels at the tomb. They told us he has risen from the dead, just as he said he would. The soldier stared at her. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Mary asked. "After the darkness, after the earthquake, after everything you saw Friday, is resurrection really more impossible than any of that?" The soldier had no answer. Because she was right. He had seen the impossible happen, had witnessed the supernatural. Why couldn't this be true too? But if it was true, if Jesus had risen, then what did that mean for him? For what he had done? "I need to see," the soldier said. "Need to know if it's true." Mary gestured toward the tomb. "Look for yourself." The soldier approached the tomb entrance, bent down, looked inside. Empty. The burial cloths were there, lying collapsed as if the body had simply passed through them. The cloth that had covered Jesus' face was folded neatly to the side, but no body. The soldier stepped back. His legs gave out. He sat heavily on the ground. "If this is true," he said to Mary, "if he really rose from the dead, then He stopped. Couldn't continue. Couldn't put into words the magnitude of his guilt. Mary sat near him, not too close, but near enough to talk. "You were there Friday," she said. "I saw you. You were one of the soldiers who—" She stopped. Couldn't finish either. "Yes," the soldier said. "I was there. I did things. Terrible things. I mocked him. Beat him. Drove the nails. And his voice broke. He never hated me. Never cursed me. Even asked his father to forgive me. How can I live with that?" Mary was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "He knew you would come here." The soldier looked at her. "What?" He knew, Mary said, that some of the soldiers who crucified him would eventually understand, would eventually see who he really was, and he left a message. What message? That forgiveness is real, that it's available, that no one is beyond reach, not even those who drove the nails. The soldier felt tears starting. "But I don't deserve forgiveness. Not after what I did." "That's the whole point," Mary said gently. "None of us deserve it. That's why it's called grace." The soldier sat there for a long time. Mary eventually left, had to go tell the disciples what she had seen. But she looked back once. "If you truly want forgiveness," she said, "you know where to find it. Seek him. He's not hiding. He's not holding grudges. He's offering exactly what he offered Friday. Forgiveness. For everyone. Even you. Especially you." Over the next days, reports spread through Jerusalem. Jesus had appeared to Mary Magdalene, had appeared to 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus, had appeared to Peter, had appeared to all the disciples gathered in a locked room. The soldier heard all these reports, wanted to believe, wanted to see Jesus himself, wanted to apologize, to beg forgiveness. to somehow make it right. But he was a Roman soldier, the very people who had killed Jesus. How could he approach the disciples? How could he ask to see Jesus? What right did he have? A week after the crucifixion, the soldier couldn't bear it anymore. He had to try. Had to at least attempt to find forgiveness, even if it meant rejection, even if it meant the disciples turned him away or worse. He found out where they were meeting, a house in Jerusalem, kept secret, hidden. He went there at night, knocked on the door. A man answered. The soldier recognized him. Thomas, one of the 12 disciples. Thomas saw the uniform and started to close the door. "Wait," the soldier said. "Please, I was there, at the crucifixion." "I know. That's why you need to leave." "I need to see him," the soldier said. "Need to ask forgiveness. I can't live with what I did." Thomas studied him. The soldier could see suspicion, pain, anger, but also something else. Maybe curiosity, maybe compassion, maybe recognition that this soldier was genuinely broken. Thomas opened the door wider. "Come in. But if this is a trick, if you're here to spy or arrest, it won't end well for you." "It's not a trick," the soldier said. "I just need to see him, need to know if forgiveness is really possible." Thomas led him inside. The other disciples were there, all of them. They saw the soldier and immediately tensed, reached for weapons that weren't there, stood between him and the women. "He's here to see Jesus," Thomas said. "Says he needs forgiveness." One of the disciples, Peter, stepped forward. His face was hard. "You were there, at the cross." "Yes. You helped kill him." The soldier's voice broke. "Yes. I did. I mocked him, beat him, drove the nails through his feet, and I can't." He stopped, fell to his knees. "Can't live with what I did." Peter stared at him. The soldier could see conflict in his eyes, remembered that Peter had been at the cross too, had watched from a distance, had wept. Peter knew what it looked like, what they had done. "Why should we help you?" Peter asked. "Why should we let you anywhere near him?" "I don't know," the soldier said honestly. "I have no right to ask, no claim to make. I just know I can't keep living like this, carrying what I did. If there's any chance of forgiveness, I have to try. Even if the answer is no, even if I'm turned away, I have to try." The disciples looked at each other, silent communication passing between them. Finally, Peter said, "He told us this would happen, told us that some who crucified him would seek forgiveness, told us to receive them." The soldier looked up. "He said that. After what we did to him, he said to receive us." Peter nodded. "That's who he is. That's what he taught. That's why he came. Not to condemn, but to save. Even those who condemned him." John, the disciple who had been at the cross, spoke up. "He's not here right now, but he will be. Will you wait?" The soldier nodded. "I'll wait as long as it takes." They let him stay, gave him water, a place to sit, and they waited. Hours passed. The soldier didn't speak much. The disciples talked among themselves, processed, some clearly uncomfortable with his presence, others more accepting. Mary, Jesus' mother, was there. When she saw the soldier, really saw him, her eyes filled with tears, but not hatred. Something else. Recognition, maybe, of shared pain, of shared need for healing. "I'm sorry," the soldier said to her. "I'm so sorry for what I did to your son." Mary approached him, looked at him closely. "My son," she said quietly, "spent his whole life teaching forgiveness, demonstrating it, living it. If I refused to forgive you, I would dishonor everything he stood for, everything he died for." "But how?" the soldier asked. "How can you forgive me after what I did?" "Because he already has," Mary said. "And if God can forgive you, who am I to withhold it?" Then, as they were talking, Jesus appeared. One moment the room was empty. The next moment he was standing there. "Peace be with you," he said. The disciples responded with joy. But the soldier froze, terror and hope warring in his chest. Jesus looked around the room, saw the soldier. Their eyes met. The soldier saw recognition there. Jesus knew exactly who he was, what he had done. Jesus approached him. The soldier wanted to run, wanted to hide, but couldn't move. Jesus stopped in front of him. The soldier could see the wounds, saw the marks in his wrists where the nails had been, where the soldier himself had driven them. "I'm sorry," the soldier said. The words felt pathetically inadequate. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know, didn't understand." Jesus' expression was gentle. "I know you didn't. That's why I asked my Father to forgive you." The soldier began to weep. "But I mocked you, beat you, caused you pain." "Yes," Jesus said simply. "You did. But that's not who you are now. That's who you were. The question is, who do you want to become?" The soldier fell to his knees. "Whoever you want me to be. Whatever you want me to do. Just please forgive me." Jesus placed his hand on the soldier's head. "You're already forgiven. The forgiveness was offered Friday while you were still mocking. While the nails were still being driven, I wasn't waiting for your apology to forgive. I was waiting for you to accept what was already given." The soldier felt something break inside him, the weight he had been carrying, the guilt that had been crushing him. It lifted, not disappeared. He would always carry the memory of what he had done, but the crushing weight, the suffocating burden, it lifted. Jesus helped him to his feet. "Now," Jesus said, "you have a choice. You can go back to your life as a soldier, or you can follow me, live differently, tell others what you've experienced, show them that forgiveness is real, that transformation is possible, that no one is beyond reach." The soldier didn't hesitate. "I'll follow you, whatever that means, whatever it costs. I'll follow you." The soldier's transformation was immediate and complete. He couldn't go back to the barracks, couldn't put on the uniform again, couldn't be part of the system that had crucified Jesus. He resigned from the army, faced questions, accusations of desertion, threats of punishment. But he didn't care. His old life was over. A new one had begun. He joined the community of believers, learned from the disciples, listened to Jesus during the 40 days he remained on earth before ascending to heaven. And when Jesus left, when he ascended and the Holy Spirit came at Pentecost, the soldier was there. Received the same Spirit, spoke in tongues, experienced the same transformation all of them did. But the soldier had a unique story, a unique testimony. He had been on the other side, had been the enemy, the oppressor, the one who caused suffering, and he had been forgiven, transformed, redeemed. People needed to hear that story. So he began to tell it, started speaking at gatherings, sharing what he had done, what he had witnessed, what he had received. Some people didn't want to hear it, didn't want to accept that someone who had mocked and beaten Jesus could be forgiven. It seemed to cheapen grace, to make it too easy. But the soldier would remind them of what Jesus had said on the cross. "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." That forgiveness wasn't conditional on the soldier's apology, wasn't earned through penance, was offered freely while he was still sinning, while the nails were still being driven. That was the scandal of grace. That was the offense of the gospel. That forgiveness was free. Not cheap because it cost Jesus everything, but free to receive. The soldier's story began to spread throughout Jerusalem, throughout Judea, eventually throughout the Roman Empire, because it demonstrated something crucial. If a Roman soldier who mocked and crucified Jesus could be forgiven and transformed, then anyone could. No one was too far gone. No sin was too great. No past was too dark. The message gave hope to people who thought they were beyond redemption. Years later, when persecution began, when followers of Jesus were arrested and killed, the soldier's story took on new meaning, because many of those being persecuted had been persecutors themselves. Saul, who became Paul, had hunted Christians, had overseen Stephen's stoning, had been complicit in murder. But he met Jesus on the Damascus Road, was transformed, became the greatest missionary the church ever knew, and he would reference the soldier's story, would point to it as proof that transformation was real, that God could use anyone, even those who had opposed him most violently. The soldier lived to be 63 years old, spent the last 39 years of his life telling his story, teaching about grace, demonstrating that forgiveness transforms. He never married, never had children, but he had spiritual children. Hundreds of people who came to faith through his testimony, who found hope in his transformation, who believed in forgiveness because they saw what it had done in him. Near the end of his life, a young man came to him. The young man had killed someone in a drunken fight, was consumed by guilt, wanted to die himself, thought he was beyond forgiveness. The soldier listened to his story, then told his own, told about mocking Jesus, about driving the nails, about the darkness and earthquake, about the guilt that nearly destroyed him, about seeking forgiveness, about Jesus offering it freely, about transformation that followed. The young man listened, tears streaming down his face. "But I killed an innocent man," he said. "So did I," the soldier replied. "And I was forgiven. Not because I deserved it, not because I earned it, but because that's who Jesus is. That's what he does. He forgives, he transforms, he redeems." "Can he really forgive me?" the young man asked. "After what I did," the soldier took his hands. "Listen carefully. If Jesus could forgive me for mocking him, beating him, crucifying him while he was innocent, then yes, he can forgive you. He can forgive anyone. That's the whole point. That's the entire message. Forgiveness is real. Transformation is possible. No one is beyond reach." The young man believed, was baptized, joined the community, lived the rest of his life serving others, teaching about grace. And when he told his story, he always mentioned the soldier, the man who showed him that redemption was real. The soldier died peacefully, surrounded by people who loved him. His last words were the same words he had spoken thousands of times. "I was there. I mocked him. I beat him. I drove the nails. And he forgave me. If God can forgive someone like me, he can forgive anyone." That message outlived him, spread across generations, across continents, across centuries, because it answered a question everyone asks at some point. Can I be forgiven? For what I've done, for who I've been, for the pain I've caused? And the soldier's story answers, yes, absolutely yes. Not because you deserve it, not because you've earned it, but because forgiveness is who God is, what he does, how he loves. The soldier had terrified everyone, not with his cruelty. That was common enough in Roman soldiers, but with his transformation, with proof that grace really works, that forgiveness really transforms, that no one is beyond redemption, and that terror, that holy fear, that awe at what God can do, it changed everything. Because if a Roman soldier who mocked and crucified Jesus could be forgiven and transformed, then the gospel was truly good news, for everyone, without exception. That's what happened next. That's what terrified everyone, not darkness or earthquakes or supernatural signs, but the impossible reality of grace, given freely, changing lives, transforming enemies into family, making new what was broken, redeeming what seemed irredeemable. The soldier's story proved it, lived it, demonstrated it, and 2,000 years later, it still does. Still offers hope to people who think they're too far gone, still proves that forgiveness is real, still shows that transformation is possible, still terrifies people with the scandalous, offensive, beautiful truth that grace is free, that no one is beyond reach, that God forgives, even when we don't deserve it, especially when we don't deserve it. That's the gospel. That's the message. That's what happened next. And it terrified everyone in the best possible way.